Hi friend, welcome to your energy forecast for springtime. You know, the next 2-3 weeks leading all the way up into the spring equinox, you're going to start to feel some things shifting. The emotions, the mood, the motivations, the creativity, the sensuality, something is in the air, but you can't put your finger on it. But that's why we're going to be talking about some of the energetic shifts that you can expect transitioning from winter time into spring. Coming out of winter season is like a whole thing in itself, you know, because you were in such a time warp. Because wintertime is this conservation season. It's not this like external, super social, super motivated, very outward kind of season. It's like take care of your bare needs, conserve your energy, conserve your time, conserve your attention kind of season. So wintertime, you're just going inward. It's very internal, maybe downloading ideas, feeling like these pings of information coming through to you, maybe being in your own head a little bit for better or for worse, but it's all about conservation. But when you're in here, it feels like a time warp. Like you look and it's January and you look again and it's still January and you look, it's still January and you look and it's still January. And then all of a sudden it's like boom, 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 boom. It's March, right? All of a sudden you're like kind of like thrown into this March energy. And this time leap can go two ways. One pathway is that you're just excited about it. You're like, finally, you know, I was like waiting for the energy and the motivation to do all these different things, and like you can run with that. But on the other end, for a lot of people, it can also feel really overwhelming, you know, because you were in this insular container and then all of a sudden it's like so many possibilities, so many things to do, so many social things to do, so many projects, and then that's where you start to get this like spring cleaning energy. You start to take on all these different projects, you know, you do like a house renovation, you're making your garden, you're, you know, calling up your friends like the girls for the, you know, for snack hour and all these different things, and you're just like all of a sudden have this like life energy brought back into you. But it can also feel very overwhelming, and you can burn out if you do too much, too soon, too fast, without being intentional about what it is that you're spending your time and energy on. Springtime transition is really about three things. And when you can be very particular and intentional about how these three things are showing up in your life, you prevent yourself from burnout. You don't overdo your adrenal glands. You don't shoot out your nervous system. You don't do too much too soon, too fast, to the point where it's not sustainable to you. The first thing to look out for in springtime is this renewal energy. Start to pay attention to some of the projects or ideas or creative things that you've gotten in the last, 2-3 months, or maybe even several years that you haven't really touched. Like things were on the back burner. So springtime is very supportive for you to revive something that you thought was dead. And it's like, look at nature, you know, like there's plants out there that you thought were dead, but then all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, tulips are out. Like, oh my gosh, the blue bonnets are out. Or like, oh my gosh, this rose bush is starting to bud again. Or this plant that I thought, right, there's a little stem or a little thing that's coming up, a little leaf that's coming up. There's this like revival energy. So there's things that feel like were completely dead or completely stagnant, or you felt like, okay, it's too late for me, or I don't have time for that. Things that were in the past that felt that way, you might start to feel a different kind of energy towards that this season. You're like, like what if I were to pick up piano, or like what if I were to pick up gardening, or what if I were to finish that home improvement project, or this other thing that I was doing, or this other hobby, or this other class. Like the world is endless, right? Like the grid of consciousness gives you so many different possibilities. So there might be some of that renewal energy that shows up for you. So this is important for you because you have to kind of develop a relationship with death when you think about renewal, right? Like some things feel like they died, but maybe they weren't dead. They were just resting. You know, they were just like not for that season. And so you might have a relationship of like, it's going to be too much work to revive this, or it's going to be too much effort to revive it. But in your head, in your mind, in your energy, in your body, you still get that, what if I did? You know, like what if I started writing again? Or what if I created that poetry book? Or what if I started, writing that blog? Like I'm just getting this like creative writing thing, and I don't know what it's going to be. And I don't know, but like, what if you pursued that? Like, what would it be like for you to just like try it, this revival energy? And so part of you is going to need to work through the resistance and the hesitation of reviving. Sometimes it feels like, oh yeah, that's in the past. I used to do that in 8th grade, and that's like so back then. It's been 10 years since I touched it. Okay, so I haven't touched music and music production in like so many years, and then all all of a sudden like I'm playing in a band and I'm like creating these things and I'm playing like, you know, gigs around town, I'm DJing and all this stuff. It's like, okay, you know, you can revive something that isn't really part of your present identity. So that energy is supported because again, like if you ever want to know like what you should be doing, like look at nature. You know, nature during the winter time was not blooming and blossoming, but there were things under the ground that were that conserved the energy for that bulb, for that plant, for that tree to come out at a season where it was appropriate. Okay, so maybe this is a season for where you're like, okay, I'm that, you know, a perennial plant where I'm gonna come out. You know, I do this in the springtime, and then summer I don't worry about it, fall I don't worry about it, winter I don't worry about it, but springtime I do. So maybe there's a relationship with your identity that you can start to shift that gives you permission, you know, and sometimes that reviving energy is like this permission to shine, to grow, to touch something that you haven't touched, to pick something back up, even if you feel shame or guilt, or you know, if you feel like a little embarrassed that you weren't consistent with it, like, okay, so what? Okay, but today's a new day, today's a new season, so that revival energy is supporting you. The second energy that is in this spring transition is a birth energy, okay? So revival is like a rebirth, and then birth is a completely separate thing where it's like a new thing that you want to initiate and then you want to plant. So think about like your garden, right? There's things that are gonna come back from last year or like a couple of years ago or from last season, and then there's certain things that are like, what if there was a brand new thing that I planted here? What is that thing that I want to birth right now? And this is the part where you have to manage your expectations on how fast you're going to see results. Because when you're birthing something, it's like planting the seed today, all right? So if you're planting the seed today, you're not expecting the seed to bloom and blossom today. You're not going to expect the flower, you're not going to expect the fruit, you're not going to expect the stems, you're not going to expect the roots, you're not going to expect much for a while, right? But that's the birthing energy. So it's going to require you to have a little bit of delayed gratification. It's going to require you to have a little patience. It's going to require you to make an effort to be consistent in nurturing whatever it is that you're birthing, okay? So think about something that is like brand new to you. So revival and rebirthing, the part one that we talked about, is like things that you already had your hands in. But then birthing is like this absolute new thing that's like, what if I started a business, or what if I started a book club, or what if I, you know, learned how to knit, and what if I learned how to do this? What if I were organizing in my community? What if I was leading X, Y, and Z? Like, again, the energies and the possibilities are endless for you, but it's this like birthing season. So this birthing energy is going to require you to have a little bit extra patience, a little bit extra delayed gratifications, and it's going to require commitment from you. And I know you hate the word commitment, like discipline sounds so this nasty word and whatever, but that's the thing that this spring energy is supporting you with, is to say that like maybe it is worthwhile to nurture, to grow, to spend the time to allow this little seedling to, you know, develop, and then all of a sudden you get to see the fruits of your labor, and you're gonna feel so proud that you got to plant something, okay? Because then when we get into harvest season in the fall, I don't want you to complain that you had nothing to harvest. Like, this is the thing that you get to harvest in the fall time. This is the thing that you get to say like, oh my gosh, you know, 6 months ago in Spring Equinox when I was planting this, I really felt like this wasn't gonna go anywhere. You know, I didn't know where this was gonna go, and then all of a sudden 6 months later 6 months later, you get to see like, oh my gosh, the fruits of my labor, it really pays off. The last thing I'll leave you here with is both the energy of renewal and rebirth and the energy of birth have a common thread, which is feminine energy. And I'm not talking about man or woman, I'm talking about the energy in itself, which is all about creativity, intuition, natural nature, sensuality, flow, and this feminine energy is going to support every single thing that you're going to do in this season. So allow yourself to tap into that feminine energy by not forcing things and allowing it to just come to you, allowing yourself to go with it, allowing yourself to explore and to discover and just to go with the flow. Now, I hope this conversation supports you in the springtime's transition. And if you're not already subscribed, subscribe. And just remember, the world is your playground. And until next time, I will catch you soon.